Welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry I haven't recorded a long form video in so long, but we're back and I'm going to do a mid-year reading check-in, so grab yourself a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, your drink of choice, and let's get into it. So I have read a lot of books so far this year. I think I've read 11 or 12, which is actually really good for me. It's more than I would typically read, so I thought we'd break it down to a little mid-year reading check-in. So I actually did a very short form of this video on my TikTok. If you haven't, then please follow me over on TikTok for more bookish related content. But yeah, I did a very short form of this where I didn't elaborate on my answers. I literally just showed the book that I was answering with and didn't elaborate. So we're going to elaborate in this video. So let's just get into it. So the first one we're going to talk about is my favourite book I've read so far this year, and that is The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper. Now, The Wolf Den is set in 74 AD in Pompeii. It's set in a brothel called The Wolf Den, and we follow some of the prostitutes that work in this brothel, but mainly we follow the main character, Amara, as she really tries to break out and break away from these circumstances and find herself a new life out of the wolf den. I really loved this book because it was so different from other sort of Greek mythology, historical fiction kind of books that I've read in this genre, because the language is so modern and current. It's almost kind of shocking. The first couple of chapters in this book, I was like, oh my goodness, they're using really modern language. They're swearing at each other and using these words that I just associate with everyday language, but they're using it in this book, so that was kind of shocking, but I really liked it. And also I just found the whole setting so interesting, the fact that it was set in this brothel and it was quite a grim kind of setting. There was a lot of deception, there was a lot of brutality. It was pretty grim, but then you had that sort of contrasted with the relationship that the women that work in this brothel have with each other. They really became like sisters. They obviously trauma bonded through this experience. They really help share the good memories with each other in this story, and I just found that really compelling, and you really wanted them all to sort of break out of it and live their best lives. Unfortunately, that doesn't all happen by the end. The main character of Amara in this book is a very interesting character, because there's always an internal struggle with her, because she wasn't always a slave or always a prostitute. She actually grew up as the daughter of a doctor, so she came from a pretty respected family and never imagined that her life would turn out this way. But after her father passed away, it was found that she didn't have a dowry and they were extremely poor, and her mother had apparently no choice but to sell her as a slave. So that's what she did, and Amara was bought by the pimp Felix that runs the wolf den and ended up becoming a prostitute. But she always knew that that wasn't her destiny. That's not where she was going to be for the rest of her life. So she's a really interesting main character. So yeah, I love The Wolf Den. I've actually just finished reading the second one, The House with the Golden Door, and the third book in this trilogy, The Temple of Fortuna, is out in November, so I'm excited to read that as well. Okay, the least favourite book I don't have, because I do not hold on to books that I don't like, so I gave it away. I actually think I sold it, but it's called The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, so I'll insert a picture somewhere here. I just had major problems with this book. Firstly, I just found that it strayed so far into the realm of impossibility for me. It just became really unrealistic, and I just need things to be a little bit more realistic. And also, the further this book gets from my mind, the more I struggle to remember it. It just wasn't very memorable. The only thing I really remember about this book is that the family are living on a houseboat, which I thought was kind of cool. And one day the mother wakes up to a note from her husband that says that she needs to protect her husband's daughter, Beth. Now, the mother and the stepdaughter in this book have a really annoying relationship. The stepdaughter is a teenage girl. She's struggling because her father's, sort of up and left them and is involved in this sort of crime scandal. We don't really know what's going on with him. So I get it. She's struggling. She's going through a hard time. But my God, is she insufferable. And the stepmother, can't even remember her name now, is just so obsessed with the stepdaughter. I think the stepdaughter's called Beth. She's so obsessed with Beth. She just so desperately wants Beth to love her and to do everything right by her and to help her, and it's that's nice, but it just became a bit much, and every other sentence was about how much she wanted her stepdaughter to just be on her side and love her, and it's it just screamed of desperation, and I was just over it really quickly. So I did read the whole thing, but it just wasn't it wasn't it for me. I just wasn't into it. Next up is the prettiest book you've read this year, and that has got to be Atalanta by Jennifer Saint. I don't really have to say much about this. I mean, you can see for yourself. I'll give you a closer look actually. I don't know if it's focusing, but yeah, this book is absolutely gorgeous. It is another Greek mythology retelling. This time it is about Atalanta, who joins Jason and the Argonauts on their quest to retrieve the Golden Fleece and their encounter with Medea, the witch, and Atalanta basically carves out a name for herself on this big heroic voyage that is all full of men apart from her. So it's a real feminist vibe for this one. I really, really liked it. But yeah, it's beautiful. The next one we're going to talk about is the book that did not meet my expectations, and that is The New House by Tess Stimson. Again, I'll add a picture in here because I actually don't have a physical copy of this one. I read it on my Kindle. Now, I did enjoy this book. It was one of those kind of fast-paced, you know, psychological thrillers. I did enjoy it, but again, I just felt like it strayed so far into the realm of impossibility. It just became far too unbelievable for me. That was my biggest problem with it. There weren't really any characters in this book that you were really rooting for. They were all very problematic, which is fine. I don't need to be rooting for a character, but maybe that would have helped in some way. But yeah, the main problem with it was just the unrealistic nature of it. And I get with books like this that they are a bit unrealistic, but this one I just thought went too far, and it was really overhyped. I felt like on Book Talk, I felt like I kept seeing people recommend this book, so I had quite high expectations for it, and then when I read it, it just didn't really hit the mark for me. So the last book we're going to talk about is the one that exceeded my expectations, and that was How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie. Again, this one was really hyped up on Book Talk. I had seen it everywhere, I heard loads of people talking about it, so actually I kind of lowered my expectations because I just thought it can't be as good as everyone is making it out to be. But I went and picked it up and read it, and I was pleasantly surprised. I actually found it really compelling. The main character I thought was a really, really interesting kind of anti-hero main character, which I quite like. And yeah, she basically just goes through trying to destroy all of her incredibly problematic family. Well, actually, they're not all incredibly problematic. Most of them are. But yeah, it was a very different, twisted kind of book for me, and I found it pretty enjoyable. My only critique of it is that I sometimes felt like some of the things just fell into place a little bit too easily for her. I felt like she could have had maybe a little bit more obstacles, or things just maybe didn't need to go as smoothly as they did in her master plan. But ultimately I did really enjoy reading about this main character, her constructing this elaborate scheme to rid the world of the evils of her family, and watching that all fall into place. I just thought it was really, really interesting, so I did really enjoy this book. And that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you've read any of these books in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts were, or if you're interested in reading them now after hearing me talk about them. I would love to hear from you. If you're not already, then you can follow me on TikTok for more bookish related content. I promise I'm going to be making more long form videos on this channel. I'm going to get back into the rhythm of it. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!